Another thing you brought up that I think is a fantastic topic for anybody listening is you talked about guys are getting on and off the stage. You have to make split second decisions. And I've heard Joe Rogan talk about it with jujitsu
Mhm.
before, where he's like, you know what? All jujitsu is basically like fast paced, high pressure problem solving. And I feel like that's what business is. That's what life is learning how to make decisions. And most people don't. So you
Sure.
being in these situations now that are like of the highest consequences with some of the most important people in the world, what is some of your recipes for calming things down, de-escalating, or just better decision making under high stress situations?
Yeah, so I mean, you saw what happens when we fail, right? I mean, it's catastrophic the day of, and it reverberates for years, right? And so, like, you're never going to calm down a situation like that if you're in the middle of it, right? To think you're going to rise to the occasion if you haven't trained and disciplined yourself, and then something bad's going to happen, and you're just going to be able to rise to the occasion because you have a shiny badge or a loaded gun on your hip. This is a terrible strategy, right? And it's kind of like what we talk, we joke about in the jiu-jitsu world, like the I see red crowd, right? Like to think that you're not going to be trained in something and then all of a sudden just show up and save the day. I'm not saying it's never happened in history, but the odds of it happening are very, very slim. So like we get good training in the Secret Service, right? Especially initially, you go through a long academy. You're very well prepared coming out of there. But like anything, right? The operational tempo of the job, we do train periodically, but it's never enough, right? In law enforcement in general, it's never enough. So like now we've got to make a decision. Do I train this on my own, or do I just sit back and say, well, the job should provide this and I'll train it. So the decision I make, and I encourage the people that work for me to make, is train it on my own, right? And so how do I do that? Is with fitness, with jujitsu, and with education. And I would say for real estate or any type of businesses, I think if you're physically prepared, it's much easier to be mentally prepared. So how do I stay calm in high pressure situations? Is like you, I train jujitsu a lot, and you're in these terrible positions physically and mentally, right? Because let's face it, like, you don't want to lose. Nobody wants to get submitted. No one wants to get dominated in a sparring round. So you've got to understand what that means and see the effects of that carry over, right? And the other thing I think a lot of people miss too is not so much the wins and losses, but you got to approach different things in life and in business differently. And I take this from jujitsu the same way. Is like I was telling my son the other day, who was rolling with a kid who was older, bigger, higher belt rank, really good, really good. And my son's pretty good, and but he was surviving, right, and kept regarding, and I'm like, that's a win for you, right? You manage that situation, and right, like not every day you're going to go out there and high crotch lift somebody, dump them on their head, jump on their back, and submit them, right? This girl was bigger, stronger. I think both her parents were collegiate athletes, like really good genetic, like savage, dude. And so like my son's surviving down there, right? And she was probably putting appropriate pressure on. Maybe if she went crazy, it would have been even. But he kept, regarding, grabbing a single, getting stuff back down. These are things, right? So same as in business, like look, like, hey, we're not going to win this one. But can we manage this so that we take something out of this to where maybe it'll be a win in 6 months, or maybe it'll be a win down the road, right? And same thing in the Secret Service. Like sometimes there's situations like, look, we're in some type of operational battle, and it's just not going to go our way, right? And maybe it's not a life or death situation, but this just isn't going to go our way today. But we've got to figure out what we're going to get out of this. We know it's not going to go our way. So what are we going to get out of this? One, it's a learning experience, but two, we're all coming out of this as a team, as a positive team, and are going to be able to move forward afterwards, right? And so those are hard lessons, right? Especially we're all A type, we're all driven to succeed, but I think you can, quote unquote, make your money in those spaces of where like, I don't know if this is going to go my way, so what am I looking to get out of this so I'd be comfortable with this tomorrow, right?